Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Lush Foliage. In today's video I wanted to talk something very important, that some of the people are making this mistake. Back 2 or 3 years back, even 4 years back, this was a very common mistake that a lot of people used to do. But luckily of late people are getting a little bit more conscious and are learning a lot about succulents, and they are definitely potting their succulents correctly. But still, on some of the Facebook groups I've seen a lot of beginners, they tend to make a small mistake which can cost them their succulent, and I'm going to show you what. As you can see, all of the succulents over here, you can see how they have been placed in the pot. I'm not talking about this one. This one is a little bit lower, but eventually I will take it out because it has kind of sunken into the pot. So as you can see, this one has kind of sunk into the pot. This is most probably because the soil was very loose and porous. In the initial start, it looked like the soil is up till the brim, but as in when I started to water, because this succulent has been in this pot for a very long time, and over the period of time of watering it, the soil started to sunk, and even the succulent kind of got sunk into the pot. But you can see the succulent is not congested. There is enough space around the succulent leaves, so it's not congesting the succulent. But again, it's not a very good idea to keep the succulent so low in the pot. We will be repotting it some other day. Now the mistake what I see a lot of people doing, let me just get this camera down over here. So I'm going to show you what is the mistake that a lot of people do. Now let's say that this is a succulent and you want to pot it. So you ideally tend to pot your succulent like this. You just leave it like this and you are done. Like, this is just an example, that's why I've not filled in the full soil. So I'm going to show you what a lot of people tend to do. Now after they have put their succulent into the soil like this, they fill it up with a lot of soil. Now while filling the soil, they are going to completely fill the soil like this. So now what is the problem with this succulent over here? As you can see, the succulent has a good amount of leaves, but half of the leaves of the succulent are buried inside the soil, and probably they don't know how to pot the succulent, or probably they are just new with succulent, so they have kind of put the succulent into the soil completely. You can see the leaves like this. This is a kind of picture that I had seen. So the succulent was completely buried into the soil with a large amount of leaves under the soil. Now what's going to happen over here is, for time being, the succulent is going to be fine. There won't be any issue. But as in when we start to water the succulent, what happens is that when we water the succulent, the soil starts to get moist, and the upper layer of soil will dry, but the lower portion will stay moist. Let's say for 2 days or 3 days, or even for 4 days, let's say the soil tends to stay moist. And when you do this on a regular basis, what's going to happen is that these leaves that are inside the soil, they are in contact with moisture. Over the period of time, these leaves that are still connected to the stem, these leaves will start to rot. And as we all know, when the leaf starts to rot and when it is still connected with the stem, it will transfer that rot onto the stem, and the stem will start to rot. Now of course you won't be able to see the stem rotting because the complete stem is inside the soil, and you will only notice that the succulent is rotting when the rot is going to reach up till the crown area, which of course it's a very late case. It's a crown rot. You cannot save the succulent in that case. So be extremely careful. Do not bury your succulent completely into the soil like this. It has to be above the soil. I'll take it out. I'll take out all the sand and the gravel, but I will clean it off later on. But you might have got an idea what I'm trying to say. So ensure that you put your succulent, again, the soil should not be this high, because what's going to happen is when you are going to water, all of that soil is going to spill out. So we're going to take out a little bit of the soil, and this is more than enough. We need to have a little bit of edge. Now just take your succulent and push it into the soil. That's about it. And there we go. All of the leaves are above the soil. The roots are beneath the soil. That is where the roots are supposed to be. So this is how you tend to pot your succulent, and not half buried into the soil. That will definitely kill your succulent over the period of time. So this was about the roots. Another thing what I have seen a lot of people tend to make a mistake is with succulents that have long stem like this. Always remember guys, a stem is basically like a straw for a succulent or for any plant. The stem is like a passage for the plant and for the leaves. The roots absorb nutrients, moisture, water, whatever it is, it absorbs that and it sends everything through this passage to the leaves, to the plant, to the flowers, whatever is present on the plant. So this is a passage. This should not be buried into the soil. It has to be above. The purpose of the stem is to be above the soil. Only the roots have to be beneath the soil. I've seen some people burying the entire stem inside the soil. If your soil is compact, it is going to kind of suffocate, or it's going to put pressure onto the stem, due to which a lot of time your stem starts to have a rot. Always ensure your stem is above the soil and not beneath. Probably half a centimeter of stem, if it's inside the soil, that's absolutely okay, but not the entire thing. This is going to damage your plant over the period of time. The same thing, just how I spoke about the leaves of the succulent. If this is going to be in contact with moisture for a prolonged period of time, it will start to have rot. It will start to turn darker in color. And then the next thing is that passage is going to transfer that rot into the leaves, and then eventually your leaves will start to fall. Now this succulent was stretched a little bit. I had taken out some of the leaves for propagation. I went ahead and repotted it. The roots are beneath, the stem is above, and then you have your succulent. So do not push this entire, I wouldn't put the entire stem like this into the soil. Probably it might root, it may not root, depends upon the variety of succulents. Some succulents tend to put out roots. What if it doesn't put out roots? It will start to rot. So you have to be extremely careful. If you have a large stem, let that stem be above the soil, let the roots be inside the soil. Do not put the succulent inside the soil, it has to be above. You kind of have that boundary where you know that how much of it has to be inside the soil and how much of it has to be above the soil. So these are very basic things. A lot of beginners do not know how to pot the succulent. They just dump the succulent. I have also seen some people putting the succulents, like this succulent is deep, as I said. They even put it even more deeper, like the pot is, let's say, 3 times deeper than this, and the succulent is almost halfway through. That again is going to damage your succulent. So you have to be extremely careful. You can see majority of my succulents, they are placed like this. You can see the stem, the roots inside the soil, and the leaves above the soil. Same thing goes with the elegans as well. You can see the stem, the leaves are above, they're not touching the soil. So that's how it's supposed to be. Even some like of my marpins as well, you can see the marpins are going to have a very evident stem. Apart from that, this is another important thing, because the stems usually tend to put out pups as well at times. Now let's say this marpin, the stem was completely inside the soil. Do you think that this pup would have come up? No, it wouldn't have come up. It would have been kind of buried inside the soil, and it wouldn't have even tried to put out a pup. So we have to be extremely careful how we tend to put our succulents into the soil. It's very important. We can't just dump all the soil on them. I've seen some people being very casual with their succulents. They just take soil and they just put it on the succulent. That's not how it works. You have to be a little bit careful if you want to have healthy succulents. Again, here as you can see, the soil is a little less, not up till the brim. And the succulent here in this succulent, because this is an echeveria, it doesn't have a very evident stem. So you can see it's in a perfect condition, doing absolutely amazing. Same thing goes with this one. This one is Alba Beauty, I guess, but you can see a lot of dry leaves. But you can see the roots are beneath the soil, and there is enough gap between the leaves and the soil. And you also can see the soil mix is very loose, very porous. This is how you need to have your soil mix. So be very extremely careful. It is pretty simple. All you have to do is just ensure that you are putting the succulent correctly into the soil. Not too deep, not too high. The stem should not be under the soil. Only the roots have to be under the soil. The leaves have to be quite elevated above the soil so that they do not come in contact with the moisture in the soil. So this is how you keep or you plant your succulents, and trust me, if you're going to follow these things, your succulents will do excellent. But of course, as I said, environment plays a very important role. If the environment is good, if it is working in your favor, trust me, growing succulents is going to be very simple. The basic things, that is something that we need to keep in mind. Initially, when you start off with succulents, it's going to be very tough. It's going to be very challenging. But as in when you start getting experience, it becomes much simple. Again, as I repeat, environment plays a very important role in growing your succulents. So guys, that's all about it. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep propagating.